Hello, welcome to the Red Devils Den podcast. We're coming off Manchester United 1, West Ham 0. And of course, a few days before that, Brentford 1, Manchester United 3. So we'll be talking about those games. A little bit of news going around social media, stuff like that. We'll talk about that as well. Maybe we'll sort of look ahead to the next game, maybe. I mean, it's a while away, isn't it? So, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, Darth, what were your thoughts on the last couple of games? Because I think it's been a bit better, hasn't it?
It's been much more better. So the Villa game was a good first half, and then Matic's legs fell off. Brentford second half was great, and then West Ham just the whole game we were really in control of them. They didn't really look threatening apart from a set piece, the Souček one really late on. Other than that, we looked. Our front third was a little sloppy, but we had them under control. We knew where they were all times. We had all of the ball, like 90% of the ball, and that's what Ragnick wants, right? He wants control of the game, the entire game, and that was probably our most. The control was like now the buzzword of Twitter, right? Like PR. But yeah, he got what he wanted in a really, really controlled performance. Okay, it was a dying seconds winner. Jeez. But
You deserved it, though, yeah.
Yeah, I felt we did deserve more than like 3 points. If it ended a draw, we should have got 3 points. But I think the final third issues with being sloppy or just not coming off, that will come. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, as you say, against Brentford in the first half, we were really bad, and we were lucky not to be losing. But then we came out in the second half. I don't know if it was the team talk or whatever, and we were much better. And then we carried that on into the West Ham game. And as you say, we put in a really controlled performance throughout the match. I think the XG was something like 1.4 to 0.3, something like that. Don't quote me, but it's something like that. So that just sort of backs it up that we did have the better chances. And as I say, I think we deserve that. But yeah, Resurgent, can you add anything on that?
Yeah, I think the match that we're talking about with the weekend, the West Ham game, it was 1.76 to 0.24, the XG, and the Rashford chance at the end that we scored off of was 0.94 XG. So even without that chance, it was something like 0.8 something to 0.24. It's basically, the XG was saying we should have won 1-0. And then we had that big XG chance at the end, and we actually did win 1-0. So I think the score line is probably a fair reflection of the game. Maybe there could have been scope for a second United goal, but I really don't think West Ham deserved anything from that. The way that I look at it, and the thing that frustrates me a little bit, is United aren't supremely creative. We tend to have matches where we're kind of stuck between 1 and 2 XG under Rangnick. And that's fine, because for the most part, he's focused on defensive solidity. And we've got to that place now where United keep clean sheets reasonably often. I mean, we'll still shoot ourselves in the foot like Aston Villa sometimes, but sometimes we can, Wolves, West Ham, not Wolves. I'm mixing that up. But either ways, we've kept clean sheets at times this season, and that's been something that's helped us out under Rangnick. And I think that the scope is there for this to kind of give us good results towards the end of the season. I wouldn't say this kind of 1.5 XG to 0.4 XG every game style of play is something that I want to see in the long term at United. It's good for the next couple of months if it gets us top 4, and then Rangnick can move upstairs and help plan. But I do wish United were a little more creative. I do wish we were more coordinated in the final third. And the one thing that I have to say, and that bothers me every time I think about it, is people kept saying, Ollie and his coaching team, it's all individual brilliance, this, that, and the other. Well, Ipswich Town are playing Tiki Tractor with Kieran McKenna, and their coordinated passing is better than ours at this point in time. So, and it reminds me a lot of some of those individual brilliance goals under Ollie. So I think what we're seeing is the previous coaching staff was better than we thought. Their rebuild might not have been as good as we thought it was, ironically enough, but their coaching was better than we thought it was. And that attacking coaching needs to be returned to this side, whether by Rangnick or by another manager, just to make sure that we're not just defensively solid. I don't want us to be like Chelsea winning games 1-0 all the time. I do want it to be exciting, like Liverpool, like Man City, where once in a month you'll have a game where they'll put 5 or 6 past somebody and just absolutely destroy them.
Wait, did you put out an article, not even an article headline that said Ziyech individual brilliance is down to Tuchel?
I did look at that. That was from Michael Cox from Zonal Marking, the Athletics resident. I don't know exactly how to describe him. They say he's a stats guru. I would say he's more like a professional asshole. That might be the way to describe him. He was of the opinion that everything under Ollie was individual brilliance, but that Ziyech goal at the weekend was not individual brilliance. It was because of Tuchel's tactical duel with Jurgen Klopp. That was the headline. So not Klopp, with Conte. And what I can't believe about that is, have you looked at that goal? I mean, is there any goal that could be more individual brilliance than that?
Yeah.
It's like, I am Robin.
Meet the agenda.
Speaking of the Athletic, didn't they release a shortlist for managers for us this morning?
Yeah.
They did. That's a good point. Yeah. They named 4. I mean, let's finish talking about the 2 matches, and then we can go on to the short list. That's a good idea. So, I mean, the other thing I would add about the Brentford match, I didn't actually get to see this one. I've seen the highlights, but that's about it. Looking at the statistics of it, though, Brentford had the XG edge. I think it was like 2.08 to 2.06. So XG says it probably should have been a draw. We got a little lucky there. And, sometimes you need a little luck on your way to the top 4, and hopefully that'll be the case. But, it's good to get 2 wins in a row, because this team, I didn't trust them to win 1 game in a row for the longest time.
Yeah, I think the individual brilliance is sort of returning a little bit, isn't it? Obviously, we're playing better football in that last second half and in the whole West Ham game. But I think a couple more players are starting to get into form, like Bruno Fernandes, for example.
So that's something I actually did want to bring up.
Yeah.
Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, and especially Harry Maguire. All of them have been dropped at various points by Ralph Rangnick. And when they've come back, they've responded brilliantly. Bruno was in, I would say, a subpar but not bad form before he was dropped. But he's, that's spurred him on to, I think it's 4 goals and 2 assists or something like that, or maybe 2 goals, 4 assists. I don't remember the exact number in the last couple of matches. There is, Rashford looked like he couldn't score in a brothel, and now he's got 2 in 2 games. And Harry Maguire has gone back to, at least in the 1 game so far, back to being the Harry Maguire that we signed, the 80 million pound, one of the best defenders in the Premier League. That guy was back against West Ham. He was my man of the match. And I'm hopeful that we're going to keep seeing him going forward.
I've probably already mentioned this before, but I think the reason them 3 were particularly in bad form, probably because they felt they owed Ollie like some form of loyalty. With Bruno, he seems really, really loyal. So I think they probably took it upon themselves to go, this is our fault. And, there was a stat, and I'm sure I've mentioned it.
The one thing I'm never going to forget is Bruno Fernandes going to the away fans after we lost 4-1 at
Blaming everyone.
Everyone, not just the manager. That's the kind of accountability you rarely see in football these days, and that's going to stick with me for as long as I'm around.
There was a stat that came out recently, and it was like Marcus Rashford is the 2nd most abused athlete in the world, and I'm like, that's insane. Yeah. Everybody's like, oh, he probably doesn't read it. Oh no, he reads it. He's a young lad on social media. He's gonna read it, and it will get on top of you no matter who you are.
I'm not necessarily surprised by that. The reason being, number one, he is obviously, like me, a person of color. He's of African descent, I think, right? By like several generations up. I know he's English, but that's one. His skin color invites social media abuse. Sadly, he's English. That invites social media abuse among our players for some reason, because our fans are reverse xenophobic somehow. And then you've got the fact that he does so much good in the world, and that reminds me of the Green Goblin from Spider-Man 1 saying to Spider-Man that you chose the way of the hero, and they found you amusing for a while, but in time they will hate you. And it's the same thing with Marcus Rashford.
Eventually they'll hate you, throw you. Yeah, it's true, because you can do so much good in the world, but if you're not doing something else that they want, then we don't want nothing to do with you. You're shit. Blah blah blah. And it's like, the guy can't win. The guy made the government do more U-turns than Usher.
Yeah, I don't see why. Obviously abuse is awful, but Marcus Rashford, out of all people, like, he's one of the best, the most influential people in football. So the fact that he gets more abuse is ridiculous, isn't it? But yeah, we were talking about a couple more players coming into form. What do you two think of Scott McTominay? I think he's been
I swear to
amazing the
God,
last
I thought you were going to say Diogo
Yeah,
Dalot.
I was like, oh no,
I
he's
was
gonna say
waiting
Dalot.
for it.
I was like,
No,
oh no,
no.
I know where he's going with this.
No, Dalot's been good, to be fair. But I
Dalot
wanted to
actually
talk
was
about
my
McTominay.
second. If Maguire wasn't my man of the match, I would have said Dalot. I thought he was fantastic. His crossing wasn't great against West Ham, but otherwise,
Yeah.
he impressed me defensively, which was the amazing part about that match.
Yeah, Dan Juma had me scarred, so I was like, oh no, Bowen and someone else.
Going in, I was the same way, but if you look at his actual defending during the game, he was very good.
Yeah, no, he was pretty good. Scott McTominay's been smashing it. Like, I think
very good games from him.
I think he's had like one bad game, but that's when the whole team was bad. Against Wolves, maybe? Yeah. But against that midfield pivot of Matinho and Neves, it's a great pivot. So, yeah, he's been great. I love Scott. He always turns up when needed, always.
There's a reasonable debate around Scott McTominay, which is, does he belong in the starting 11 or on the bench? People who don't think he's a Manchester United player have absolutely no understanding of the game of football whatsoever. These are the kinds of people who live off of Twitter agendas in their mom's basement, yelling at people over the internet.
Mike,
love Glazers hate United, all those people.
I always said Fletcher reminded me of a little bit of, not Fletcher, Scott McTominay reminded me of Darren Fletcher.
He does, absolutely. I've been saying that for years.
Yeah, I know that detriment to Scott McTominay, but it's bad to say it, but the moment it becomes a squad player as an option, it's better for us in the long term than him starting every week, if that makes sense. Don't want to, like, I know he's playing great now, but it's, yeah.
I was talking on Twitter with at I think it's pronounced Hader_Rabani. He's the host of the TF Masterclass, and we were both talking, and I think we were both got to the same place that Scott McTominay's best position in a title challenging squad is your first midfielder off the bench.
Yes,
because he has the tactical variety to fill in any midfield role. At the same time, he's not necessarily that elite passer or that elite shielder that you want starting games.
No, I as I said, the moment he becomes squad rotation, him and Fred, I'll be happy, like fully, because then I know we've got a better midfield. Well, you would hope.
Two ahead of them, and then McFred is backup. That's what you want.
Yes.
Yeah. I think McTominay's been really sort of mature. Like you saw, I was going up against Declan Rice as well, who's probably one of the best midfielders in the league. That sort of, I mean, imagine McTominay and Rice together. That'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? But yeah, they battled each other well, and I think McTominay as well. He was driving forward. He was really confident and mature, which we probably needed to see more of. But yeah, we'll move on. Obviously, the Athletic posted that shortlist in there. I can't remember the exact names. I don't know if
I can get them up.
Pochettino, Ten Hag, Julian Lopetegui, the Sevilla manager, and Luis Enrique, who's with Spain right now.
Did you do the Sevilla manager?
Yeah, the Julian Lopetegui, the Sevilla manager, formerly of Real Madrid and Spain and Porto, I believe.
Yeah.
So that was the 4 they had put out. And I'm just going to say straight off the bat, regardless of my own feelings about Luis Enrique, I don't think he would take the job. I think that's a useless name to discuss because he specifically took that job back from one of his close friends because he wanted to manage his team at a World Cup and he wasn't able to last time because his daughter had passed away. And now he's 3 months from being able to do that this summer. And we're going to say, actually, no, be the United boss. It's just not going to happen. And we're not going to lose our manager in the middle of the season and say, do both for a couple of months. I think realistically, Luis Enrique is not an option.
Pretty much what I was going to say. I was going to say, I don't think Enrique wants to leave Spain. He's probably on the short list of, maybe keep an eye on him. He might go all tits up for Spain and just have, just say we bring in Poch and then it doesn't work. Always have options, right?
What I will say about that is whoever we appoint next summer or this summer, they need to get at least 2 years, 2 full seasons in charge before we make any judgment about them. I don't care if Pochettino comes in and we finish 6th in the first season. That's not something that bothers me. So he's finished, I think, 7th in his first season with Spurs as well. And PSG, his first season, they didn't win the title despite he came in when they weren't on top, but still the expectation should not be that we're going to have instant results with a new manager, regardless of who it is.
No, I have reservations about Julian, just because of his Real Madrid stint. But then Real Madrid kind of a mess still.
So here's what you have to remember about that season with Real Madrid, though. Zidane left. Lopetegui gets the job. He agrees to take it after the Euros. Spain at that point sack him because he agreed to take the job after the Euros and appoint one of the ex-players, I don't remember who it was, and
Google it.
He did a terrible job and Spain were eliminated relatively quickly. Then Lopetegui goes to Real Madrid. I think they gave him 10 or 12 matches in the league and they sacked him. So it was an absurdly short stint. Then they brought in
was it Fernando Hierro?
Fernando Hierro was the Spain boss. And then after 10 games, Real Madrid sacked Lopetegui and brought in, I think, Santiago Solari.
Spain
Santiago Solari was there from, I think, October to March or something like that. At which point they sacked him and brought in Zidane. Real Madrid went through 3 managers that season. Lopetegui was not given any time to succeed or fail on his own merits at Real Madrid. So to me, really that entire spell should be disregarded.
He's doing, but then it's like me saying, you should always disregard manager going to PSG because there's so much politics at PSG, right?
Yeah. I think the difference there, Darth, is that with PSG, I think you take it with a grain of salt because of all of the unique things at that club. But still, like, for example, Pochettino will have had a year and a half at PSG if he comes to United this summer that we can judge him on. If he had 12 games, it would be much harder to judge him, Think about it this way. Ralph Rangnick is the interim manager at United. He's going to take something like 25 games, 28, 30 games this season for us as our manager. With Real Madrid, in total, in all competitions, Lopetegui managed 14 matches. So imagine if you took Rangnick's interim spell, cut it in half, and that's how long Lopetegui got there.
I get it. Ten Hag, I don't think he suits us, per se.
I have a nagging fear about him so 2 parts. The first one is I think that the beautiful football that we see Ajax play requires players who've been coached in the same way of playing at that club for years and years since they were young.
And they have a proper football structure.
I think at any other club, and I'm not criticizing United here, Barcelona, United, Juventus, Man City, maybe not City because they've had Pep for a long time, but any of the other clubs, you're going to find a situation where it's going to take a lot longer to implement, and you're going to have an interim stage where it might look a little bit like Louis van Gaal football. And I don't think that fans are going to be able to tolerate that for the amount of time necessary. So that's one concern I have. And the other concern is looking at how Rangnick's football has adapted to the Premier League. He was known as one of the most attacking managers in the Bundesliga. And now I would say, are not a super entertaining team to watch about a
But
month
not
in.
yet.
Not yet,
yet.
at least.
No.
So how does it translate as a concern? I like Ten Hag. He's second on my short list, but I prefer what I know and I trust with Pochettino, where I know what a Poch team plays like when it's good, when it's bad in the Premier League. I've seen it with Tottenham Hotspur. He knows a lot of the managers. He's played against them. He knows the fans. You know, I'm comfortable with what I know, and maybe that's a little bit cautious of me, but I just feel like Pochettino would be my choice.
Yeah, I get why Poch, but I want Luis Enrique because I think he plays unreal football. But again, how does it translate from Barcelona, Spain to United, the Premier League, right?
Luis Enrique is a great example of why one job shouldn't define somebody. At Roma, he's there for 2 years. Or maybe one season. He did not have the best of times. He did not get them into the Champions League, and he was let go of relatively quickly. Then he went to Celta Vigo, rebuilt his reputation. Then he went to Barcelona, and he killed it at both Celta Vigo and Barcelona and Spain so far. So you necessarily can't judge somebody off of their time at a dysfunctional club. At the time that Enrique was at Roma, they were dealing with, Monchi was there. He was having some horrific transfer spending in the time that he was at that club. And so you end up in these situations where you can't judge somebody off of their worst spell. Like, for example, David Moyes got Sunderland relegated, but Sunderland was a madhouse of a football club. West Ham decided to employ him, and he did what he did for Everton for them. So, you have to judge someone on the totality of their record and not on a small bad spell. The other manager, and this one is not, so one of the important things that came out of that Athletic piece was they said United are focusing on getting somebody who has experience at a big club. Ten Hag at Ajax, Enrique at Barcelona, Lopetegui with Spain and Real Madrid, Pochettino obviously with PSG and Tottenham. So one of the big names that I would have on any given short list is Ruben Amorim, who's the Sporting Lisbon manager, or Sporting Club de Portugal, sorry. And he would not be considered because he doesn't have big club experience. But, that's interesting to me because I think that there is potential value for whoever goes for him.
There is absolutely untapped potential in the Portuguese market. So much.
Sergio Conceição, the Porto manager, as well, doing very well.
It's not even that. There's midfielders, strikers, wingers, centre backs, like players in there, like Julian Weigl from Benfica. I'd take him at United.
Pedro Gonçalves at Sporting. There's a lot of there's the defensive midfielder. What's his name? At Sporting. I can't remember his name right now.
I know the one. I can't remember it.
I like Julian, the German.
Yeah, go on, give it a search.
Yeah, Julian Weigl, I know you're talking about. The one I was thinking was João Palhinha.
Yes, they lost on the weekend because that's like their second loss in like 2 years.
Yeah, Amorim's done fantastic since he got them.
To give
you some perspective, Ruben Amorim, across his jobs at Braga, and Sporting Club de Portugal, has won 75% of his matches. And that's not a small sample. He's managed 109 games. Like, the guy is insane. Like, he is going to be one of the top managers in the world. I would have him on a short list for United. He's not at the top of the list, but I would have him on the list. United, though, seem to be focused on having that experience, which is fine. David Moyes was overwhelmed by the scope of the club. So if they want experience, to me, Pochettino is the way to go because he's the one that we have some experience with. Ten Hag is the one who is, I think of the Gattuso quote, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit, right? It could be either way. And I don't want to take that risk.
I actually, as a manager, I'm actually not I'm a fan of Gattuso as a manager. Is it Simone Inzaghi as well?
Simone Inzaghi, the Inter manager, formerly at Lazio. Yes.
Anyway,
Inzaghi is one of the ones who I was talking about like a year ago when people were not really focused on him. I think he's fantastic as a manager.
Marco Rose as well at Dortmund.
Yeah, they're 6 points behind Bayern. If they win the league, though, you never know.
Mm-hmm. I just think Bayern win it because Nagelsmann and Bayern.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So yeah, I can echo what the surgeon said about Pochettino and experience. I think he sort of makes the most sense in my mind. One thing about Lopetegui, or however you pronounce it, I remember when he got sacked from Real Madrid, Sergio Ramos came out and said the difference between him and Zidane was that Zidane could really motivate the players, and the players all loved him, but Lopetegui couldn't really get them all on side. So if he's not really that sort of man manager, I think we really need someone who's a man manager with our squad, because we've got so many huge egos.
So just to give that some perspective, I just pulled up the article from the Time. Ramos said that
this is just from memory, to be fair.
I know. I'm trying to kind of pull things up from the Time, and what I'm seeing is that Ramos said, well, so he said, first of all, before they sacking him would be crazy. He said that so other people take decisions like that, but it's never good when there's a change in coach. It would be crazy when they asked him if Real Madrid should look at moving on. And I understand that he was still the manager, so he had to be defensive of him. The other thing to note is that the Daily Mail have an article saying that Sergio Ramos claims Real Madrid squad are to blame for Lopetegui sacking. So I'm not going to try to read the specific line of the article right now, but there was there were multiple factors involved in that situation.
Yeah, I get that. But yeah, anyone else got any more points on the managers, or should we move on to something else?
I just think it's going to be Poch.
Club have had one more name I have on a short list that isn't going to be considered because of the big club experience thing is Graham Potter. I think he is absolutely fantastic. He's destined to manage a top club one day. I have a personal gut feeling it'll be Tottenham after Antonio Conte is gone from there. But I think there's a couple of managers that United are leaving off the list because they don't have big club experience. That we've got. So Pochettino makes sense, big club experience. Lopetegui, I understand that Sevilla is doing very well right now, second in the league, 4 points behind Real Madrid. I understand Ten Hag is the most prominent of the smaller clubs because Ajax are such a big club. But Amorim, like I said, at Sporting, Sergio Canseco potentially at Porto, although I would maybe stay away from him. And then Graham Potter is another example of like this next generation of manager that's out there a little bit younger who potentially could come in like Nagelsmann at Bayern Munich and do a good job that I think the club would be wise to at least consider. But it seems like we're going for a little bit of an older head. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense. There's one more thing.
Speaking of, I have a good transition for this, Reese. Speaking of Pochettino being probably the favorite for us, he'd be coming from Ligue 1, and there have been some rumors that he wouldn't be the only person coming from Ligue 1. At Odds on FPL, our friend of the podcast, Paddy Keogh, was basically talking about Boubacar Kamara being a possible signing this window. Muppeteers have said no signings are expected, but Kamara is somebody who Marseille are desperate to sell because his contract is up in 6 months and they want to get something back for him. So if we could do it, would you guys be interested in signing Boubacar Kamara?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we just need a midfielder, like anyone will do, to be honest.
I looked at the stats for him before I hopped on, and his passing and his ball carrying was the closest to Nemanja Matic of the vast majority of players whose stats I've looked at. He's a very, I wouldn't say that he doesn't have the world's greatest passing range, but in terms of like just sheer yards up the pitch, the ball moves, he's very similar to Matic. He's very disciplined at staying in that holding midfield role. He is by definition a number 6. There's some players that are on our list that are kind of 6/8s where they can play either position. Declan Rice can do both, or Chouameni can play both positions. But specifically, Kamara is a dedicated number 6. And that I think is massive. If we can get him, I'd love to have him.
Kamara can play centre back at this point as well. He's played it a few times
in defensive midfield.
But yeah, he is an out and out DM, and We have been crying out for a DM for the longest time. He is free in summer. Go to Marseille and go.
He's also 22, so he's quite young, very adaptable.
Just go to Marseille and go. We'll offer you 50 million.
They only want 10. You don't have to pay him that much.
I don't care. Just go there and go. We'll give you 50 million. Here.
I mean, I think the club, if they are going to go for Kamara, they're going to wait till the summer because, for one, it's going to be cheaper, and we know they like
signing on fee isn't cheap.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true. But and two, we're probably going to have to give him some time. I think, especially coming in January when he's 22, he's coming from Ligue 1 to the Premier League. I'm not sure he's going to really hit the ground running, especially in January.
And that Bruno Fernandes coming from Portugal, 24, 25 years old, can't really expect him to hit the ground running. You got to give him time to adapt. Sometimes the signing can hit. You never know, Reese.
Yeah, I don't know. Ask Bruno about that one. But in all seriousness, though, I get it, but just do it. There are some great midfielders out there.
From what I've seen, I will say, it seems to me like Kamara is somebody who's a long-term club target. John Murtaugh seems to be taking more and more of a hands-on role with our recruitment. Rangnick had some quotes earlier this week that, there's some stuff going on about players leaving the club, but I'm not involved in that. They'll let me know, which really seemed to imply that John Murtaugh has a lot of power right now with regards to transfers. And if it seems to me like Murtaugh wants Kamara, Rangnick wants Haidara, and then the Zakaria stuff is all agent-driven rumors. For me, from the numbers I've looked at, from having watched both players play a couple of times, I've seen a lot more of Zakaria and Haidara than I have of Kamara, admittedly. But from the limited sample I have, I would say that Kamara probably fits what we need a little bit more than the others do.
Yep, that's fair. I think more the club have, like, the two main targets for the club are Bellingham and Rice. That's it, right?
So the thing is, though, both of those players are going to cost like £100 million each.
No player is worth 100 million, but
So the thing is, I understand no player is worth it, but just in terms of as a practical matter, Jadon Sancho cost £72 million from Borussia Dortmund, despite having like 2 years left on his contract. Bellingham has like 4, and they don't want to sell him because they're going to lose Haaland this summer. So if you tried to sign Bellingham, you'd pay over £100 million. If you try to sign Declan Rice, he's under contract until 2025. You're going to pay like £100 million. The way United have to either consider potentially going with cheaper alternatives, you could go with Kamara for free plus Bruno Guimaraes from Lyon, or Kamara and Aurelien Tchouameni. There's different combinations you can come up with.
Or Neves would cost the same amount as Declan Rice.
Neves you can get for cheaper than Declan Rice, a lot cheaper, like half.
I said Tielemans.
Oh, Tielemans, sorry, yeah, Tielemans talks like Declan Rice. Yeah.
Tielemans and Ruben Neves, which are two midfield options, will cost the same amount as Declan Rice. So
the problem is, I don't think you want both those players. I think you want one of them plus more holding midfielder.
I think you get both because Ruben Neves can do a holding, right?
Ruben Neves is immobile for the most part.
But you tell him to just stand there.
He reminds me of Granit Xhaka. He needs a more defensive-minded player next to him. The way that I would look at it is you want, in an ideal world, assuming we can move for one of our targets this summer, what if we sign Kamara for free as the holding midfielder and then Declan Rice as a number 8 for £100 million and said, okay, there you go, that's 2 midfielders.
Kamara and Rice with Bruno. That's a really good midfielder, actually.
Or you could do Kamara, Tchouameni, and Bruno if you want to go cheaper than Declan Rice. I think there's different ways to play it, but the main idea is you want Kamara, you want an orthodox number 6. It could be Kamara, it could be someone else. And then you want somebody who's a little bit more creative as the second midfield player. You don't want 2 creators, you don't want 2 destroyers.
So here's what I actually said. I said here's how the club are going to play it. Our main targets in January aren't available. And then we'll go summer, and then it'll be like, our main targets are too expensive, so we're not going to sign anybody.
I think that you're being too pessimistic. You have to remember this club signed Cristiano Ronaldo, Rafael Varane, Jadon Sancho last summer.
That's also true, but we also chased Jadon Sancho for 2 years.
True, but we didn't chase Ronaldo for 2 years. We didn't chase Varane we chased Varane for like 10 years. But
Yes.
but here's another
on,
thing.
man.
Here's another thing. Whenever a new manager comes into the club, with the exception of David Moyes, take that one out. Look at Van Gaal, Mourinho, and Ollie. Van Gaal's first summer, Di Maria, Daley Blind, Marcus Rowe. He spent like 150 million pounds.
Yeah, but there is recurring things here.
What's
so?
The
every time we spent big, we missed out on Champions League.
No, because in 2014-15 we spent big and we qualified by finishing 4th.
We did 14-15.
14-15 we finished 4th with 71 points.
Who did we buy?
We bought Angel Di Maria, we bought Marcus Rojo, Daley Blind, Victor Valdez came in on a free transfer, and there were 2 or 3 more signings that I'm forgetting right now.
Yeah,
but there were 6 signings total in that first Van Gaal summer.
Herrera, Shaw,
Herrera, and Luke Shaw. Those were the 2 I was forgetting.
Yeah, we
Rojo,
just spent big.
Blind, Valdez. Di Maria was the most expensive.
But look at the total. The total was like 150 million pounds.
Okay.
Yeah, huge.
Also, we've got like a minute left. Does anybody have any last transfer thoughts?
Can Lingard go, please, so we can sign someone? That'd be nice.
That would be nice. Yeah, Jesse, please. Reese, you want to wrap up?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, a good episode. A little bit shorter. We wanted to aim for around 35-40 minutes, and I think we got that. So, yeah, hope you all enjoyed. Thanks everyone for watching.